So a few weeks ago I made a video about my thoughts on Return to Monkey Island's ending, and I received some good opinions and theories in the comments section, but overall my video expressed disappointment about the ending and how unimaginative it was. So I thought I'd make a more positive video to balance things out. So I'm going to give you my thoughts and memories on Secret of Monkey Island, a game that is forever in my top 10 favourite games of all time. And if you stay till the end of the video, I'll tell you a piece of Monkey Island trivia that has never been highlighted. In fact, I'm not even sure Ron Gilbert knows about this one. So keep watching till the end to learn what I think is an unintentional Easter egg. Anyway, back to the video. I first played Secret of Monkey Island back when I was around 9 or 10 years of age, which was when the game came out, and I didn't know anything about the game when I first played it. You see, I was guilty of having quite the collection of pirated games, no pun intended, for my Commodore Amiga 500, and I would regularly come back from a visit to my uncle's with a bunch of Amiga games copied onto spare discs, as my cousin, who was the same age, also had an Amiga. Now, I don't encourage piracy in any domain, whether it's movies or music, but I was 10 and had no idea how morally wrong pirated games are. Anyway, I remember coming home with a bunch of Amiga discs from my uncle's, and one of those games was Secret of Monkey Island. My first memories are just walking around, talking to characters and exploring what I could of Melee Island. I spent so much time in the Voodoo Lady's shop, chatting and going through every bit of dialogue, convinced that this part of the game would help me on my adventures. I made very little progress in the game, as you can imagine, what with being 10 and relatively unfamiliar with point and click adventures. But I had a copy of an Amiga Power magazine with a complete 4-page walkthrough, and that is when my real adventure began. Some will rightly call it cheating, much akin to following a YouTube walkthrough today. But I wasn't really bothered about that sense of achievement, more the sense of adventure. I would lose myself for hours sitting in front of my Commodore Amiga, completely immersed in Ron Gilbert's point and click adventure. For a good few years I would play The Secret of Monkey Island till around part 2 and sometimes part 3. For some reason I never completed the game for years, but I'll talk more on that near the end of the video. There are numerous reasons why I love The Secret of Monkey Island, but the single biggest one would be Guybrush Threepwood. I mean, is there anyone more likeable in gaming than Guybrush? He has such a naive way of going about things, and there's such an innocence to what he does. But behind the naivety and innocence is a bravery and stubborn determination that is nothing short of admirable. I mean, he literally turns up to Melee Island with nothing but the fancy pants he has on, and just assumes he can become a pirate, just like that. It's adorable. One of the first things he does is walk into a bar full of grog-induced drunken pirates, go straight up to the 3 leading pirates on the island, interrupt them mid-drinking session, and tells them he wants to be a pirate. He is either very naive or very brave, or possibly both. He doesn't get discouraged by the 3 objectives they give him, he just enthusiastically goes about the tasks at hand with no complaints. And if you're playing the game correctly, he'll sneak into the kitchen, steal some items and walk out. Now if you're like me and have worked in hospitality, then you'll know how high-strung and quick to flip out chefs are, so you don't ever want to upset a chef mid-shift. Guybrush certainly takes a chance early in the game here. What about the time he decides to stand out in the middle of the night, challenging random pirates to a sword fight? Did it ever occur to him how mental that might be? There's a moment early on in his adventure where he hears a voice in a dark alley, so decides to wander in to see who it is. It turns out to be Sheriff Fester Shinetop, who we later learn is Pirate Captain LeChuck in disguise. Anyway, Guybrush wanders into this dark alley, and is warned about doing so by Sheriff Shinetop. I'm leaning towards naive in this case. Dark alleys in the middle of the night on an island full of pirates doesn't seem to be the sensible place to be around. Then he shows bravery by standing up to Shinetop, aka LeChuck, later on in Elaine Marley's mansion. A mansion that Guybrush has broken into with the intention of stealing. But at no point do you think what he's doing is wrong. His headstrong, naive, innocent way of going about things is rather endearing. Another one of Guybrush's actions which confirms he is naive, brave and stupid is when he climbs into a cannon, something he does twice in the game, to be fired out of said cannon by the Fettuccine brothers, with nothing but a pot on his head, acting as a helmet. Crazy, but you've got to love it. I think one of the game's biggest strengths is that it makes you care about the main character. You're invested in him from the beginning. I always remember that moment when Elaine is captured by LeChuck and Guybrush is standing looking out onto the sea from the pier, watching the ghost ship sail away with her. The combination of that sad scene with the moving soundtrack that accompanies it was so powerful, and if you weren't invested in finishing the game before, you certainly were now. Of course, The Secret of Monkey Island is littered with a great cast of supporting characters. I've mentioned Elaine, who would act as Guybrush's love interest throughout the adventure. She's the opposite of Guybrush. She's confident, charismatic, and doing well in life, what with being the governor of Melee Island. And although there isn't a romantic connection from the very start, she definitely has a soft spot for him, allowing him to leave her mansion that he broke into with the idol he was there to steal. I mean, he puts a hole in one of her walls, drugs her guard dogs, and can't even muster an apology after she catches him. Not the best first impression to give the woman of your dreams. The third main character in all this swashbuckling shenanigans is of course LeChuck, a ghost pirate captain with a crew of undead pirates no less. This was written years before Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Ron Gilbert gives inspirational credit to the Tim Powers novel On Stranger Tides, a book that I own and very much enjoyed, although I wouldn't say I noticed too many similarities personally. There are of course the Pirates of the Caribbean theme ride, which has been credited as another source of inspiration for Ron's point and click adventure, but really I can only give him and his team full credit for such a wonderful and original story. I would say that it is possibly my favourite story in gaming. Last of Us is up there, and also by Naughty Dog, Uncharted 1 and 2. But for me, Secret of Monkey Island beats it, and the reason why is character progression. Guybrush goes on a journey not just physically, but emotionally. He starts out as a young naive pirate, and after falling in love, he steps up and becomes the man he was destined to be. He somehow assembles a crew together at a time when everyone is scared of pirating thanks to LeChuck and his ghost crew. He manages to acquire a ship, find Monkey Island, and successfully return back to Melee Island safely. A wonderful journey that's just as fun to watch as it is to play through. Secret of Monkey Island has more to it than the engaging story of Guybrush. The insult-themed sword fights are genius. A hilarious battle of wits that is so original in concept and adds to the hilarity of what is, in my opinion, one of the most humorous games ever made. Now, the insult sword fighting isn't just added for the sake of it. Nope, there's a reason behind it. That reason is to gather enough witty replies to arm yourself for the inevitable showdown with the Swordmaster. After acquiring enough retorts, you have to find the Swordmaster, which is simply a case of following the shopkeeper, who's more than happy to head over to Carla's to bother her, the old pervert. Carla and the shopkeeper are just two of many smaller characters in the game who add so much. The Voodoo Lady, Stan the Salesman, and Herman Toothrot, the stranded old figure based on Robinson Crusoe, who is based in real life off a Scottish pirate called Alexander Selkirk. They're just a few characters that pepper the main story throughout. Another one of the game's endearing charms is the soundtrack, provided by Michael Land and his team. What a fantastic soundtrack it has. From the opening scene, the game sets the bar high for quality music. The Scumbar music is perfect, like a proper sea shanty tune, and the soundtrack throughout is equally appropriate to the scenes they accompany. The only thing the Secret of Monkey Island is lacking is the revelation of what the actual Secret of Monkey Island is. Monkey Island sequels suggest that it's most likely all a big dream, and that it was all a figment of Guybrush's imagination. It's all a bit vague, so it's not 100% confirmed, but it certainly feels like that's the case. Who knows? Now, I mentioned in the beginning of the video how I used to sit and play through the Secret of Monkey Island till around part 2, and that's because I owned a pirate version and I didn't know how or even if I could save the game, which meant I had to play through it throughout to the end in one sitting. I eventually done so, and to be honest, I sort of regretted completing it. It was a game that I had played for years, and when I did finish it, I felt really sad, like it was the end of an era. I wasn't ready to complete it. Deep down, I didn't want to know the ending. I would have been quite happy for it to remain an enigma, always unfinished. Nowadays, I play through the game on the PS3 as a way to relax. Its easygoing pace makes it such a stressless experience. It cures any anxiety I have about anything. Some games will never age, and I think Secret of Monkey Island is one of them. Great story, great characters, hilariously funny, ridiculously charming, and forever one of my favourite games. God bless you, Guybrush. So at the beginning of the video, I mentioned about a piece of Monkey Island trivia that has never been mentioned before, which makes me think it is unintentional, but nevertheless is well worth highlighting. In Monkey Island 2, LeChuck's Revenge, there is a rather nasty pirate called Largo Legrand, who acts as LeChuck's right-hand man. He's a bully and not very likeable. His first name is Largo, which is rather unusual, and that's where this Easter egg revolves around. His name. You see, Largo is also the name of a Scottish town on the east coast, in the beautiful kingdom of Fife. And it's the birthplace of an infamous Scottish pirate who I named earlier, called Alexander Selkirk. For those who don't know, which I expect to be many, Alexander Selkirk was the real-life Robinson Crusoe. a man who found himself abandoned on a small island off the coast of Chile for 4 years and 4 months between 1704 and 1709. And it was his experience that inspired Daniel Defoe to write Robinson Crusoe. The island would later be renamed Robinson Crusoe Island in 1966, instead of being named after the man who actually survived on it, Alexander Selkirk. And of course we kind of get our own Robinson Crusoe, aka Alexander Selkirk, in Monkey Island, in the form of Herman Toothrot. So there you go, Largo is named after the Scottish town that is the birthplace of the real life Robinson Crusoe. I don't even think Ron Gilbert knew that. Anyway, thanks for staying to the end. Hopefully see you again.